Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The director screamed, "Cut!" but Kaylin's hand didn't loosen its iron grip around my throat. The studio lights blazed overhead, turning the dust motes into a halo around his golden hair, but his eyes, those famous, sapphire eyes that smiled from 1,000 billboards, were currently pools of absolute, terrifying darkness. We were breathing hard, chests heaving against each other in the suffocating heat of the soundstage, the leather of our period costumes creaking with the tension. The script called for the Crown Prince to threaten the captured assassin, a moment of dominance and disdain. But the scene had ended 10 seconds ago. The cameras had stopped rolling. And yet, Kaylin Thorne, the nation's boyfriend, the man whose public image was so squeaky clean it was sterile, was looking at me not with the scripted hatred of a royal, but with a raw, predatory hunger that made my knees buckle. He leaned in, his lips brushing the shell of my ear, and whispered a line that definitely wasn't in the screenplay. "Keep looking at me like you want to kill me, Julian. It's the only time you're honest." I shoved him away, stumbling back against the faux stone wall of the dungeon set. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Get away from me," I hissed, my voice trembling with a mixture of rage and something far more dangerous. "Touchy," Kaylin smirked, the mask of the polite idol sliding back into place as the crew bustled around us to reset the lights. But I saw his hand twitch at his side, as if he regretted letting go. "My name is Julian Vane. In the hierarchy of the entertainment industry, I was the jagged rock to Kaylin Thorne's polished diamond. I was the indie darling, the method actor who starved himself for roles and lived in shadowy apartments, obsessed with the craft. I despised the idol industry. I despised the manufactured perfection, the fan service, the hollowness of it all. And Kaylin Thorne was the king of that plastic kingdom. When I was cast as the antagonist in The Red Sovereign, the year's biggest historical blockbuster, I nearly turned it down when I saw Kaylin's name as the lead. It was a joke. A serious actor playing opposite a glorified pop star who sold vitamins and soft drinks? But the paycheck was too big to ignore, and my agent had begged. So, I took the role of the assassin sent to kill the Crown Prince. I told myself I would act circles around him. I would expose his lack of talent just by sharing the frame. I was wrong. From the first table read, Kaylin had been disturbing. He wasn't bad. In fact, he was terrifyingly good. He didn't play the prince as a hero. He played him as a sociopath hiding behind a smile. It was a performance so nuanced I found myself staring at him across the table, trying to dissect where the character ended and the real Kaylin began. Whatever respect I might have garnered for his talent, however, was overshadowed by his personality. Off camera, he was insufferable. He was surrounded by an entourage of stylists and managers, drinking imported water, smiling that practiced, blinding smile at everyone. But whenever we were alone, in the makeup chair, waiting in the wings, he would drop the act. He would look at me with a cold, calculating assessment that made me feel like I was being dissected. "You hate me, don't you, Julian?" he had asked during the second week of filming. We were standing outside the trailers, smoking. Well, I was smoking. Kaylin just watched the smoke curl from my lips with a strange fascination. "I don't hate you," I lied, exhaling a gray plume. "I just don't respect what you represent." "And what do I represent?" "Commodity. Artificiality. You're a product, Kaylin. You're not real." He had laughed then, a low, dark sound that vibrated in his chest. He took a step closer, invading my personal space, looming over me. He was taller than me, broader, and despite his pretty face, he had an imposing physical presence that he usually dampened for the cameras. "You think because you wallow in misery and smoke cheap cigarettes, you're real? You think because I smile when I want to scream, I'm fake?" He tilted his head, his eyes locking onto mine. "Maybe I'm just a better actor than you, Julian. Because I never stop acting." That was the moment the war began. For the next month, the set became a battlefield. Every scene we shared was electric. The director was ecstatic. The chemistry between the prince and the assassin was palpable, dripping with a vitriol that read beautifully on camera. But off camera, the air was thick enough to choke on. Kaylin took every opportunity to provoke me. He would criticize my posture, make backhanded compliments about my raw, unpolished style, or simply stare at me from across the room until I flushed with irritation. But there was something else beneath the hostility. A current of awareness. I found myself watching him when he wasn't looking. I noticed the way his shirt clung to his shoulders, the elegance of his hands, the sharp line of his jaw. And I caught him watching me too. Not with disdain, but with a brooding intensity that I couldn't decipher. The tabloids, of course, were obsessed with his love life. Every week he was linked to a different actress or girl group member. He played the part of the straight, eligible bachelor perfectly. He gave interviews talking about his ideal type. Always women, always sweet, docile, domestic types. It made me sick. It was just another layer of the lie. He's a fraud. I muttered to my reflection in the trailer mirror, wiping off the fake blood from the day's shoot. He's just a straight, arrogant prick who thinks he owns the world. A knock on the door interrupted my spiraling thoughts. Before I could answer, the door swung open. Kalen stepped in, locking it behind him. The trailer was small, cramped with costumes and a vanity. Kalen filled the space instantly. He was still in his costume, heavy black silk embroidered with gold dragons. He looked regal and dangerous. "Get out, Kalen. I'm tired," I said, grabbing a towel to scrub my face. "We need to run lines for tomorrow," he said, his voice devoid of its usual mocking lilt. The betrayal scene. "I know my lines." "Do you?" "I know yours too," he countered, stepping closer. I spun around in the chair to face him. "What is your problem? Why are you always here? Go bother your entourage. Go call one of your girlfriends." Kalen's expression darkened. The playful mask shattered completely. He crossed the distance between us in 2 strides, grabbing the arms of my chair and spinning it so I was trapped between his legs. "You really believe it, don't you?" he whispered, leaning down. "The magazines. The interviews. You think that's me? It's all you act like." I spat back, though my heart was beginning to race again. The scent of him, sandalwood, sweat, and something expensive and musky, filled my senses. The nation's boyfriend. Straight as an arrow. Perfect and boring. "You have no idea," he murmured. His hand came up, fingers tracing the line of my jaw, rougher than I expected. "I'm not straight, Julian. I'm not nice. And I'm certainly not boring." I froze. The admission hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Kalen Thorne, the man whose career depended on the fantasy of being available to every woman in the country, had just handed me a loaded gun. "Why are you telling me this?" I breathed. "Because I'm tired of you looking at me like I'm empty," he said, his voice dropping to a growl. "And because I've been trying to get a reaction out of you for 6 weeks that isn't disgust. You're insane. If anyone heard you." "I bought the production company, Julian," he cut in, his eyes gleaming. "Everyone on this lot signed an NDA so strict they'd be bankrupt for 3 generations if they whispered a word about what happens behind closed doors. I own this set. I own the silence." It was a staggering display of power. It explained everything. His arrogance, his recklessness on set. He wasn't gambling with his career. He had rigged the game from the start. He had built a fortress where he could be whatever he wanted, and he had trapped me inside it. "You're a monster," I whispered, but there was no venom in it anymore. Just shock. And fascination. "Maybe," he agreed. "But you like monsters, don't you? That's why you play them." He leaned in, giving me time to push him away. I didn't. I couldn't. The magnetic pull that had been building between us, disguised as hatred, suddenly snapped into focus. It wasn't hate. It had never been hate. It was a rivalry of a different kind. 2 predators circling each other, waiting to see who would bite first. Kalen closed the gap. His lips crashed onto mine, not with the tentative exploration of a first kiss, but with the devastating force of a dam breaking. It was possessive, demanding, and hot. He kissed me like he was starving, like he had been imagining this every time he looked at me across the set. I gasped, my mouth opening under his assault, and he took the opportunity to deepen the kiss, his tongue tangling with mine. It was overwhelming. The taste of him was intoxicating, mint and bitterness. My hands, which should have been pushing him away, found their way into his hair, gripping the golden strands, pulling him closer. He groaned into my mouth, a low, guttural sound that vibrated through my entire body. He hauled me up from the chair, pressing me back against the vanity mirror. Bottles of hairspray and makeup clattered to the floor, but neither of us cared. His hands were everywhere, gripping my waist, my hips, sliding up under my shirt to touch the bare skin of my back. His touch burned. "Say it," he demanded, breaking the kiss for a fraction of a second, his forehead resting against mine, his eyes wild. "Say you want this." My brain was short-circuiting. The world-class actor, the man of words, was rendered speechless. "Say it, Julian." He bit my lower lip, a sharp pain that sparked a jolt of pleasure down my spine. "I want it," I choked out. "Damn you, Kalen, I want it." He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just crashed his lips back against mine, devouring the sound of my surrender. We didn't run lines that night. The next morning on set was different. The crew didn't notice anything. To them, we were still the aloof superstar and the brooding indie actor. But the air between us had shifted. It was no longer a wall. It was a tether. We were filming the climax of the movie. The scene where the assassin finally corners the prince, blade to his throat, only to realize he cannot kill him. Action. I lunged at Kalen, tackling him onto the elevated platform. The choreography was complex, a dance of violence we had practiced for weeks. I pinned him down, the prop dagger pressing against his jugular. This was the moment the script called for hesitation, for a realization of shared humanity. But looking down at Kalen, I didn't see the prince. I saw the man who had unraveled me in a trailer hours ago. I saw the man who lived a lie for the world but showed me his truth. Kalen looked up at me, his chest heaving. In the script, he was supposed to look fearful. But Kalen stared at me with that same dark intensity, his eyes flickering to my lips for a nanosecond before returning to my eyes. "Do it," he whispered. It was his line. "Strike me down." My hand trembled. It wasn't acting. The fear of what we had started, the danger of it, the absolute insanity of falling for a man who belonged to the world. It terrified me. "I can't," I whispered back. My line. But then Kalen improvised. He reached up, his hand wrapping around the back of my neck, pulling me down until our foreheads touched. The camera was close, zoomed in on our faces. This wasn't in the script. The director should have yelled cut. But the silence on the set was absolute. "Then you are mine," Kalen whispered, barely audible to the microphone, but loud enough for me. "If you do not kill me, you belong to me. Soul and body." It fit the scene. It fit the twisted relationship of the characters. But I knew he wasn't talking to the assassin. He was talking to Julian. I stared into his eyes, seeing the challenge, the promise, and the danger. He was offering me a place in his fortress, in the shadow of his colossal fame. A secret life. A forbidden love hidden in plain sight, masked by method acting and industry rumors. I dropped the dagger. It clattered loudly on the wooden stage. "I am yours," I said. "Cut. Print." That was perfect. The director's voice broke the spell. The crew erupted into applause. Kalen's smile returned, the dazzling, perfect idol smile. He patted my shoulder like a good colleague and stood up, offering me a hand. "Good work, Vane," he said loudly, for the benefit of the onlookers. I took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and possessive. As he pulled me up, he squeezed my hand twice, a secret code. A promise for later. I looked at him, the top star who said he was straight, the man who had just claimed me in front of 50 people without them having a clue. The world saw a scene from a movie. I saw the beginning of a very complicated, very dangerous reality. And as I walked off the set, watching him charm the script supervisor, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't acting anymore. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf. Not with a bite, but with a kiss that tasted of ruin. If you enjoyed seeing the pristine idol king drag his rival into the dark, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, is it better to live a perfect lie or a dangerous truth? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then,